Welcome back to the Hodge-Cast podcast. Today I'm joined by Charlie Hendrie, otherwise known as Commando Charlie. Is that your Instagram handle, Charlie? Yeah. Yeah. So I just thought I'll segue this in as to who you are. You're going to explain your life story because I think it's an incredible story, mate, and I think it's something that most people probably know you from the HYROX community and stuff. That's how obviously I was first introduced to you through the is it the podcast, the HYROX pod? What's
That's
it called?
Right, ROX Life.
The ROX
podcast.
Life. That shout out to ROX Life. And obviously I'd seen that the caption that they put up in the post was highlighting a few bullet points about all the stuff you've done, which we'll divulge into. And I thought, I've got to reach out to this guy. It's an incredible story. Yes, obviously I like HYROX taking part in them. We've had a HYROX special version of this podcast, but I felt your story's got more layers to it. Obviously, you got back to us and you was keen to get on, and here we are recording this. Before we divulge into it, mate, we ask all our guests this, particularly when we're doing life stories, and that is the penultimate question of what does challenge mean to you, Charlie?
Well, challenge is a great question for this whole podcast in general because my life has been full of challenges and we all face challenges in life. I believe challenge is an opportunity for growth, and I truly believe in the saying that if it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you. Some of my biggest challenges in life have also been my biggest lessons that I've learned from the most. And I believe the challenges shape who we are, and that's why we should embrace them, learn from them, because it can only make us stronger.
Perfectly answered there, mate. And I think as this interview goes on, we'll outline everything that you've said epitomises that quote there. Okay, so let's strip it back right to the start. Give us a little bit of background, where you grew up, childhood, that sort of thing, mate.
Right back to the beginning.
Right back to the very beginning.
So just to paint the picture, my dad is Scottish. So he's from Campsie, just outside Glasgow. He moved down to Manchester when he was 14, joined the army when he was 16, into the Scots Guards, served just under 8 years. He was actually posted out in Hong Kong. That's where I met my mother. She is from Sunderland. So I'm half Scottish, half Mackem. Them two met, fell in love, moved back to the UK, got married. I was born, my parents split when I was 2. My dad settled in Manchester. Then I moved around various places with my mother, towns, cities, different places all the time, unsettled, moving around. She then, excuse me, I have got a bit of the lurgy.
We are, a bit of a disclaimer, we are recording in winter, so I probably sound a bit bummed up, and obviously Charlie's got a bit of a frog in his throat, but it's all good, it's all good.
Yeah, so I moved around a lot as a child, quite unsettled. My mother remarried, moved back out to Germany with another guy. He was also in the army. Things didn't work out there. They then broke up. We moved back to Sunderland, where my mother was from. Moved there when I was 8 years old and had to start a new life in Sunderland from there.
Okay. And so when you was 8 years old, so you move around a fair bit there. How do you feel that did that, just because of them foreshadowing the things that are going to be spoken about, did you find the moving around had an impact on you at a young age? Or
Yeah, so when I thought about this in my childhood and growing up, I felt like I was maybe always unsettled, always the new kid. I got bullied quite a bit. Sunderland is rough, it's tough, and moving there with a posh accent called Charles, I'm sure you can imagine the challenges that I faced there. So that was quite tough, and I did get bullied quite a lot. My mother was always fighting my battles, and I do believe that's where I maybe got a lot of strength from, especially at that young age with that resilience of seeing her and all of the knockdowns and the times that she's bounced back from setbacks or failures and things. Her strength was kind of instilled into me. I always was just a nice kid, just wanted to play, make friends. Sunderland was tough, and then you can only take so much. And then one day I've just fought back the bullies, and then after that day the bullying stopped. And then when I've got to secondary school, things have started to get with the wrong crowd there, started to get up to no good, a little bit up to mischief. In deep down I knew that wasn't me, but I was kind of trying to fit in again, go with the crowd. My first instance with the police that I got in trouble was 14. I was arrested for a stolen vehicle on a field. That was my first experience with the police. So I was destined on that path of, if I stayed with that people and that group of friends, I'd have probably ended up in prison a lot sooner.
So going back to, I mean, essentially, it's one of those stories. We have quite a few people who, person who's been sort of like a victim or has been bullied, generally once they get over that or they find a way to counteract it, they go down a bit different path, whether that's the class clown, you know, getting into trouble, that sort of thing. So it does kind of epitomise that. While she was at that age, did you have any kind of aspirations, what you wanted to do when you grew up, sort of thing?
I always think as well, people, when you've experienced, I mean, we all have our own challenges from childhood, and I'm not here for a sympathy vote or anything like that, saying mine was harder than anybody else's, but I do feel like it gives you a layer of resilience or a layer of armour. And I found a lot of people in the forces who went down the military route do come from some sort of trouble or trauma or struggle from a background, which helps them excel throughout the difficulties of training or combat or anything like that. They've got that mental resilience from a young age. I always had the influence, coming back to your question, from my father, from his military, hearing the adventures, his time in Northern Ireland or the jungle. And I guess I just wanted to kind of follow in his footsteps, make my parents proud. And for me, the military was a way out of Sunderland to do something with my life.
It's interesting that, because I know obviously when I was in school, a lot of people, you had people who probably similar to yourself who had that ambition because of a relative or because it's something they've always wanted to do. But then you also have people who kind of just used it, I'm going in the army. I'm not bothered about grades, I'm going in the army. So my next question for that would be, obviously you need to be fit with the stuff you've done and obviously still doing now. Did you always have that drive for, you know, was PE your favourite, was sport your favourite subject? Was you quite a fit lad? Was you competitive in that sense, or was it just you wanted to go in the army that was blinkered because of your dad?
When I think about now, how I even made it to day one of training, I must have been 10.5 stone piss wet through. The only training I'd ever done was run up to the local boxing club and back. So basically I was 15 when I went to the careers office. So how it panned out is I spoke to my mother and said I wanted to join the army. Now, she mentioned the Marines and how tough they were and how it was one of the hardest infantry trainings in the world. So I thought, amazing, what better of a challenge than take on the hardest infantry training in the world. My dad was in the Scots Guards. I thought I'd be super proud. I'll make it in the Marines. And I even told the teachers at school that I wanted to do this at 15, and they just laughed at me. They said, you got no chance. It was like, you can't even make it to school. How are you going to survive in the Marines? So we've gone down to the careers office. I watched the induction video. And as soon as he pressed play on that video, wow, the ultimate sense of adventure. You see these soldiers in the jungle, in the desert, in the Arctic, doing all this really super cool stuff. So I was like, right, I'm sold. I wanted in. So then I had to wait till I was 15 and 9 months and able to go down on a 3-day induction course. So the only fitness I'd really done was a little bit of sheet of paper they give you of pull-ups, press-ups, dips, some bodyweight exercises, a few little runs, and the boxing. So when I arrived on this 3-day induction course, you have to do a 3-mile run. I didn't even know how far 3 mile was. And I was like, shit, as long as I'm not at the back and I can keep up with the guys in the middle or I can stay near the front, I should be all right. So after doing that 3-day induction course, back then it was called the PRMC, Potential Royal Marines course. 3 days, you just get thrashed. Classroom work, physical tests, exams, etc. And my legs after that 3 days have never been so sore, still to this day. Like the ultimate DOMs you can imagine. Total shock to the system. But that was the induction of when you pass that, you get then given a date to go for your actual real training. So that was then, I left school in July. That was then December. And then after that, I started to get a little bit more fit, start taking my training a bit more seriously. But I left school in July. I just turned 16. I arrived at Lympstone in December. I was the youngest recruit to arrive there, the youngest recruit to go through training. And like I said, I was like still a boy. I looked so young. How my parents even agreed to let me go there. I remember my mum waving me off from Newcastle Careers Office. I had a brand new suit on and I must have looked about 12.
Did you, well, obviously, apart from the appearance, did you mentally, did you feel like you was the youngest? Had you kind of like developed, obviously 15, you know, you're still essentially, some people are late bloomers through puberty and what have you. Was you around bigger guys or did you kind of feel as though you fit in from the off despite being the youngest recruit?
I think growing up in Sunderland from that young age, you kind of become very street smart. And you think you are a lot more grown up than you are, or a lot more tougher than you are. When I arrived at Lympstone, I was surrounded by all the men of all ages, different walks of life. Bear in mind, I've come straight from school, no life experience really. The only job I'd had before was a paper round. And the difference arriving there is having moved around a lot as a kid, I was always the new guy trying to fit in. I was always the outsider. I was always different, or I got bullied for maybe the way I spoke and things. where when I arrived at Lympstone, I was surrounded by all new guys, all from different walks of life. Everybody had a story. So I kind of already, when I arrived there, I felt like I fitted in, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, definitely. And you touched on as well, obviously, layering a bit of armour and what have you on yourself, but obviously growing up in Sunderland. Talk us through, so for people who maybe haven't got an army background or they don't fully know, what's kind of like the process, your process of joining the Marines? Just give us a little bit of a breakdown for that in layman's terms.
Okay, so the Royal Marine training essentially is 32 weeks long. You arrive at Lympstone. The first few weeks of training is called the foundation stage. You're basically taught everything: how to wash, shower, shave, brush your teeth, literally everything, how to iron, how to make your bed. And this is all for a reason that if you've been shown how to do something and then you don't meet that standard, there's no excuse. You either then get back trooped or you fail or you get dismissed. Whereas if they don't show you how to do something, then you can say you've not been shown how to do it. So they're essentially teaching you everything. So it doesn't matter how old you are, you're getting shown and you have to watch a man shower, shave, and do all that foundation stage stuff. From there, you then progress through the weeks. As the weeks go on, the intensity gets harder. Different skills and drills you'll learn, you'll pick up along the way. The first half of training is your basic infantry training. And then after that stage, essentially you go on to the commando stage, which it gets a little bit more tactical and a lot more advanced. Now, out of 56 people that started my training, only 11 people made it to the end as originals. The most common things for guys is they may get injured or they just may choose to leave, realize it's not for them, and they quit.
So what do you think set you apart, being that, because obviously 56 then condensed to 11, what do you think there was that sort of desire from you, your mindset? What was it that set you apart from those that didn't make the cut?
I think definitely the resilience coming from growing up with my mother, the struggles we went through there, definitely helped me get that thick skin, that layer of armour. But also the drive and the determination, coming back to the challenge question, is on a deeper level. I've always found overcoming challenges as a way to prove to myself that I can do something, and more so prove to others who maybe doubted me wrong. So Mr. Walker in English, I told him I wanted to join the Marines and just laughed at me. Told me I had no chance. First thing I done as soon as I passed out, I went back to my school to show all the teachers and to speak to them all, to show them what I've actually done and achieved. Because my last year of school, I had like less than 50% attendance, failed a few exams, didn't have the best outcome. So essentially they just thought, he's going to make nothing of his life, this kid. So as soon as I finished that training, I was back there to show them, look, what I've achieved.
It's interesting, especially like in the sort of like this digital age, social media, the amount of hate and negativity that goes online. And a lot of it is put into people who you know, like yourself, Charlie, who are trying to achieve great things. But some people let that get on top of them. Whereas other people, even you, it was instilled in your young age, they use that for fuel, don't they? Yeah. It's a bit of an FU to people who've put you down, whether that's people online, whether it's teachers, whether it's your peers, whether it's your mates, you know, and just saying, oh, you're never going to be able to do that. And it's always a great sense of achievement and satisfaction when you can turn around and go, I told you, kind of thing. So that's interesting, that, because even, I mean, how old would you have been at that age? About 16?
16. I went through all of my training at 16, turned 17 in July, and I passed out in the August.
Okay, nice. So when I was chatting to you before we recorded, you mentioned, obviously you got into the Marines and then it was 9/11 struck. So do you just want to tell us that story and how that impacted you and your journey within sort of like the Marines? Yeah,
for sure. If I just finished back to me passing out to the training. So you go through a series of the exercises, and only because a few of the Marine pals laugh, but I say it's one of my proudest achievements. So on pass out, you get certain awards. Now you can get like the King's Badgeman for like the best voted recruit, or you can get like the fittest recruit and things. So I got what's called the Determination Award. Now at that young age, for me, it was kind of a big deal. Maybe I wasn't the fittest, the strongest, or the best in the field, but they valued me the most determined. And on the final exercise, you do an insertion, yomp. We call it yomping, marching with kit in the Marines. And on the first exercise, on the first yomp in, I started to feel pressure on my foot. And we yomped all the way through the night. And this was the start of the 10-day exercise. And the pain got worse and more excruciating. And I knew if I told anybody, I could be failed off the exercise, back trooped, and have to do it again. So I just gritted my teeth, took some painkillers, cracked on, finished the exercise. When I got back to camp, had an x-ray, I'd actually broke my metatarsal. So I broke a bone in my foot. So I managed to push through the whole exercise with a broken foot, because I knew that I've come this far, I wasn't willing to then get back trooped and lose it all on the last hurdle. And when we got back to camp, I had the broken foot. I think I'm the only person that's done, you have what's called King Squad, where you do all your marching and things and getting ready for your parade, for your pass out. I'd done my whole King Squad in trainers. All the lads had boots on. I managed to get a 6-note kit to wear a pair of trainers. So I'd done all my marching in trainers that week. Then on the last day, I was managed to tie my boots up, strap my foot up, and then done my pass out in the boots. Because the option was I had to stand on a bench to the side, just stand to attention, did read my name out. And I thought, no chance. My parents have waited all this time. I've really I've dreamed and visualized this day for so long that I'm not willing to stand on that sideline and just get a stand into attention. So I just gritted my teeth and pushed through it.
It's almost like a bit of a David Goggins style story, that, isn't it? I love all that, and again, it goes back to your why you're doing it, sort of thing, because you want to prove to yourself that you're better than what other people have labelled you as. Good story that, though, mate. So have you any more like that before we touch on the 9/11 or
from the Marines? No, that's my favourite one.
Is that your favourite one? Repeat. Okay, so going back to the original question, so how did the events of 9/11 shape your time in the Marines?
Right, so on pass out, you then decide or choose which unit you'd like to go to, which commando unit. I went to 4-5 Commando, which is based in Scotland. I joined a newly formed company called Whiskey Company. Me and a few of the lads there, sharing a 4-man room, great times. Our troop sergeant, Steph Moran, legend of a man, one of the biggest role models throughout my military career. He was in charge of us. We started to gear up, do some training, do some exercises. I originally went out to Oman first for 7 weeks desert training. Great times there. When we've come back, 9/11 happened just before. So we was on the ranges in Barry-Budden, and we had the news come over the radio, what had happened with the Twin Towers. And I think from there, we just knew that the military now was about to see a huge shift throughout the Middle East, which obviously it did. We've then gone out to Oman, done that desert training, came back. And then the lads was on an exercise in Otterburn. They've been called back from the unit and they were told they were going on ship. Now, they wasn't originally told they were going to Afghanistan. They were just told they were going out to the Middle East to support. I was only 17 at the time. So it came down from Parliament. Anybody under 18 can't deploy. So you have to stay behind, which was a frustrating time because I've done all this training. I'm with the lads, I'm with my teams, and I'm going to now have to sit on the sidelines and watch them deploy. So they've gone out to Afghanistan in 2002 on Op Jacana, and I stayed back on rear party, essentially guarding the camp.
Obviously, I know you touched on that briefly, but just to expand on it a little bit. How? Because obviously, like you touched on, you want to showcase that's your why for doing things. Hence why you was able to get that determination award with a broken foot. What was your thought process with the fact that you couldn't go? It's almost like there's that barrier now put in front of you. That's like, well, I've trained all this time. I've trained to go to war. I've trained, and I can't do it. How was you? Did that mentally shake you at all, or did it have a profound impact on you?
Well, like you said, mentally, I was thinking, well, no one told me this before, but obviously no one could foresee the events that was about to unfold or what was about to happen. I just had to literally just take it on the chin. But I do believe everything happens for a reason. And I met an influential figure in that time that would then help shape the trajectory of my career later on with going to Afghanistan. And the person who I met there, there's two people that I looked up to throughout my whole career. One was Steph Moran, and then one was this other person. I can't really mention his name. He's a big public figure now, legend of a man. And we became good friends, spent a lot of time with him during that rear party days. And so for that reason, I wouldn't change it. Like, that had to happen for me to meet him for what was to come later.
This is a question that I kind of put to you just while we're talking now, because obviously recent events, I know you did. We've had ex-Marines, ex-soldiers on the podcast before who served in Afghanistan, and obviously with the recent Taliban sort of transit taking over, I generally just want to know what are your thoughts on that. I know you didn't serve, so it kind of maybe you've got a different outlook on it.
I did serve.
Oh, you did serve? Okay, later on.
There's two Afghans, so basically I missed out on Op Jacana. That was 2002. The lads came back. I rejoined my whiskey company. We've then deployed on Operation Telic, which was the first Iraq. That was part of the initial invasion in 2003. My company was Cat 2 support for SAS. So we was operating up on the west side of Iraq. That tour there, remember, all looking for the weapons of mass destruction. It was a little bit misleading and a little bit frustrating because when we was on the ground, we were getting fed these mission orders. And when we'd arrive at certain locations, it sometimes wasn't maybe turned out to what it was supposed to be. So it was a little bit frustrating. So when we've come back from there, we've done various other training. Then we've gone to Northern Ireland. So I spent 6 months in Northern Ireland, peacekeeping operations there, patrolling, lots of gym. Quiet tour, it was quiet times then. Nothing like when my father was in back in the 80s with the hunger strikes when it was quite active. Then it was after Northern Ireland, I got pinged for a signals course. So within the Marines, if you don't choose the trajectory of your career, it can be chosen for you. So I was pinged to do a SIGS course. So I've came back to the UK from Ireland, done my SIGS course, went on ship for 3 months, Operation Kalash. Some lads went to Kenya, some lads went to Bahrain. My troop stayed on these little vessels, board and search operations in the Northern Arabian Gulf. Low-level interdiction operations, board and search in the fishing vessels, cargo ships. Looking back now, it was actually probably the better end of the stick, even though at the time it felt like the worst. But operational experience-wise, it was a good experience to have. Then it was after that I put my notice in to leave the Marines. So I thought, I've done these tours now. We were talking about going into close protection at the time, me and a few of the lads, because that was rife now out in Iraq. Had my notice in to leave. And they offered me a few little things. And I was like, nah, I'm going to go. We've got this plan. Me and my pal, Dave, we're going to set up our security company and we're going to do the close protection route. And then one day I get a call when I'm in the office. So I've gone into the office. Marine Hendrie, blah, blah, blah. Start swearing down the phone, gobbing off. And I'm like, hello, sir. So this is a captain on the phone. It was the guy that I'd met on Rear Party and become friends with all them years ago when I couldn't go to Afghanistan the first time. He's on the phone to me now. He's captain in a unit called 148 Battery. Get that shit out. Get down here. We're going to go out to Afghanistan. I'm going to get you on this course, this course, this course. He'd not even finished speaking. My mind was made up. Put the phone down. I said to the Sergeant Major, I want to go to 148 Battery. This guy tells me I'm doing something. I'm doing it. So then I was down to 148 Battery. Totally different outfit to how the Marines was working. We were part of 6-man teams, fire support teams. We'd be in charge of controlling the jets, artillery, mortars. We were fire support teams. So I went down to there and then I deployed to Afghanistan in 2006 on HYROX 5. So that was the first experience of Afghanistan with the Taliban. Just as it kicked off, the Paras were there in the summer. We went in on the winter tour straight after them.
Apologies, that's me. I didn't think you served in Afghan, so I do apologise. That's my error. I suppose the question now is even more relevant. I kind of like, where are you having served in Afghan? Where's kind of like, what's your take on the developments now with the Taliban? Do you feel like it was all kind of done in vain, or do you feel it served a purpose? I know there's a lot of conflicting opinions on it, and we don't want to go too political, but where do you, as Charlie Hendrie stand? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So where do you stand from like your involvement with it and the developments of where it's at now?
How it ended and how to see the withdrawal process was a shit show. And it was quite upsetting to see everything we'd put into that, blood, sweat and tears, to see them pull out in that way and the way they've left that country now. The reality of going to Afghanistan, as operational experience-wise, it was great. The reality of is we did lose people out there, and I did lose friends out there. We did see people killed. There was a lot of death, destruction. We were fighting Taliban on a daily basis, up close and personal. A time when I was there, it was a case of it was all fresh, it was all new. The ID threat wasn't that high, so they were taking us on, and the fighting was relentless. So on a political side, I was too young to understand at that time. Really, I was just a young soldier. I was 22 years old, following orders, doing what we was there to do: find, destroy, kill, capture Taliban. Looking back now and how it's panned out over the years, I don't think the guys died in vain, because we had a job to do and we had to eradicate an enemy, which we successfully did at that time. It's just a shame to see how it ended. That's all.
No, but I think you've a politically correct way of answering that, mate. Definitely. But no, it is a shame. I mean, I've no military background in any way, shape, or form, but I've got quite a lot of friends, and it generally is a shame that it ended the way it did, because it's kind of like it's almost like, especially someone who has that ethos of you want to see a goal to fruition, see it to the end, and it's like you never quite got to that goal, not you personally, but as a collective. Before we go into your close protection, which I'm really looking forward to speaking to you about that, what are some takeaways you took from the Marines? What for you personally, what was the biggest takeaways you took?
I'd say it's the lessons that I learned through training, the mindset, the values that was instilled in me from that young age that have served me well over the years. the determination. The biggest one, cheerfulness and adversity. So no matter how shit things may be or how tough times you're going through, being able to adopt a positive attitude, see the good. And with the Marines, you could be in the worst place in the world with the lads. It doesn't matter. You'd still get through it. You still find things to smile, to laugh about and help each other through. So it's the experiences throughout all my military career have definitely shaped my mindset and my ability to handle the things that life thrown at me later on with the prison, etc. And it's experiences I'd recommend to anybody. A military at a young age does put a good head on your shoulders and gives you a broader outlook on life.
So you touched on this briefly, going into you and your mate going into close protection. You got the call, obviously, to go and serve in Afghanistan. What was the thought process? Why did you, just remind me, was it because there was a lot of it going on in the countries you were serving, or is it just, again, something you wanted to do, security?
Why did I want to leave the Marines?
Yeah. What was the transition? Because the two kind of like, even though there's some elements that are similar, it's kind of two opposite ends of the spectrum there. So what was the thought process there?
Originally, I was leaving because I thought I'd kind of reached the point in my Marine career where I was stopped enjoying it. So I wanted to experience life outside of the forces. When Afghanistan came up and I had that call, because of what I heard was going on in Afghanistan, I was at a point where I've joined the Marines to do this. I can't miss out on this. The action, the rumours that were coming about what was going on there, the fighting, it's everything I joined up for. It's, as a soldier, to put everything to the test under them conditions is essentially why you join and why you go through the training and do what you do. So after Afghanistan, when I did come back, I felt like I'd kind of now achieved everything that I set out to achieve. I didn't really join the Marines to see it as a whole career. It was just at first a way out of Sunderland. Then when I've come back, I was at a crossroads. I was in a relationship at the time. That's probably helped influence my decision. Then I've decided to leave and pursue a career in close protection. When you put in your notice from the military, you get 12 months of return of service. I'd done my close protection course, done a few other courses, and then I left. I left the Marines. And what's funny as well, the girlfriend that I was with that helped make my decision, when I left, we broke up. I had nowhere to live. I was living on my mate Ed, his sofa in High Wycombe. I had all these security jobs in and around London. I only ever worked for 2 companies, so this was the first company I worked for. I was doing red carpet events, a few little gigs in London, keeping busy, some stalker watches set outside people's houses. And he had the contract for Elton John, and it was in UK and Europe. So I'd done some RST, residential security, at Elton John's house. But whilst I was at my mate Ed's on the sofa, I had these jobs. I got a call from my mate Jay, who was in Ibiza at the time. Obviously, I'd just come out of this breakup, a little bit down. I've gone out to Ibiza, and that was my first experience of Ibiza in 2008. So then I've gone out there for a few weeks, come back, sold my motorbike, gone back out there and spent the summer there in 2008. So now I've left the military. I'm in a civilian world, starting life all over again, brand new challenge, prove to myself that I can do something, prove others who thought I might not make it after the Marines, prove to them that I could. And then that's when I've entered the world of close protection, if you like.
Just to clarify, because that's a little bit of a smirk there. So you were sleeping on your mate Ed's sofa whilst being Elton John's bodyguard, essentially. Was that happening at the same time? Because I just find that hilarious. Like, you know, it's what a story that is.
Well, you can imagine me. I've had this plan to leave the military. I've left, and all of a sudden I'm now on Ed's sofa. My girlfriend, we broke up. It wasn't bodyguard for Elton John at that stage. At this stage, it was just looking after the premises in Windsor. So basically it was a night shift, whilst also doing the red carpet security events. And yes, I was basically on his sofa for that period of time until I've gone to Ibiza, come back, gone back out to Ibiza. Then when I've returned, I've then moved back to Manchester.
So I know when you touched on, when we spoke on the phone, obviously we was going to go do this. You mentioned about some of the rescue missions in Tunisia. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that story? Because I know it's a story that you quite like, and obviously I think it's a good story as well to tell.
Yeah, that could take the whole podcast, that story. So with this story, I'll try and condense it down. So I've come back from Ibiza, had an amazing time out there. From 16 to 24, I'd never experienced partying. I'd never really been on holiday like that. I'd only never experienced the music or the clubs. So Ibiza was a real eye-opener. Great to get that out of my system at that young age. I was still only 24 at this stage. When I've come back, I've picked up doing some little gigs in and around London again with the same guy, same security company. But then I've also had a call from the guy that was on my close protection course. asking if I was available to go to Tunisia on a task. That's all he told me. Told me the dates, how long I'd be away for, rate of pay, was I free? So I jumped at the chance, first overseas coast protection task. He said he'd give me the brief when we got to the airport. Got to the airport, he's given me the brief. We're basically going to kidnap 2 children that have been kidnapped by their father, who's going to rescue them back from Tunisia back to the UK. So we've gone to Tunisia on the premise of how the story unfolds is she'd met this guy in Tunisia. They had children, returned back to the UK, set up a life in the UK. Things didn't work out. He took the children on fake passports to Tunisia away from the mother. She's then tried to get the kids back. She couldn't get any help from the British government. So what's happened is she's gone down the private security firm route. They've tried to help her. They've got as far as the plane. The police came, shut down the operation. She's flew back without the kids, a failed operation. She's then, some months later, tried again with the company now I was hired for. The plan was to go out there essentially to provide a surveillance role and just offer protection on a standoff position, because she'd already tried to do it legally through the Tunisian system. So she had a court date. She was going there to have a hearing. She was what we thought would get granted custody of the children for like some amount of time. When she was alone with the kids, we had a yacht with 2 Marines on standby in Malta. We'd recce an extraction location. They'd come in to the beach, take them off, and we'd escape, and we'd do it that way. Now, things didn't go to plan, and I won't go through all the day-to-day, but essentially what's happened is she got refused custody of the kids. We was like, right, we need to get her out of here by any means possible. So we tried to get her to build up a relationship with the dad to spend some time with the kids. So then when she did that, she might be allowed some time alone. All we needed was like a 30-minute window of opportunity that we could take her and the kids and we could be gone. That didn't work out. I think he got a little bit suspicious. It was Eid at the time. He's invited her and the kids to go spend Eid with the family down in the sticks in the middle of nowhere. Now in Tunisia, there's a lot of police checkpoints. They're all armed. They speak French, and it's quite a corrupt, rough place, if you like, when you go out away from the tourist areas. The 3 guys from the UK have come out to offer protection and assistance, because what we were planning to do was get him to bring the kids around, maybe restrain him and whoever he was with, leave them in a house. We'd then take the kids and the mother to the extraction point and we'd escape, tell the police where they were, they'd be safe, they'd become under no harm. He's took the mother and the kids down south. We was going to wait until they came back. The boss has made the decision. Let's go. We'll wait under the cover of darkness, wait till everyone's asleep in the house. We'll get her up with the kids. We'll take them and we'll go. The plan was changing every day, and it felt like we were just digging into a hole. Things were just getting deeper and they were just going wrong, bad decisions after bad decisions. But we was adaptable and we was just trying to roll with it to get her out of the situation. The plan was now to get in the middle of the night, her, when she's with the kids, to come down to the bottom of the path. We'd be there waiting and we'd take them to the extraction point. The father's left the house with all of his cronies, the brothers and things. She's made the call. Can we do it now? So the boss was like, right, let's go now. Go now. No one's at the house. Let's get there. We've got to the house. 1 car stayed at the front near the drive. We've come around the side. Me, 2 others. We've come along the garden, if you like, just all mud and irrigation ditches. There was a guy that stood on a porch with a phone. Straight away, we've been compromised. He's seen us start to go noisy. He's on the phone, screaming and shouting. He's ran over to the TL, if you like, gripped hold of him. They're in a bit of scuffle and match. The guy was then put down to the floor, silenced, if you like. We've then got the mother and the children running down the path. I've got the kid in one hand. I've got the mother in the other hand, running her to the car. We put them in the front car. The 2 guys get off in 1 car. We're in the rear car. As we're now heading off down the path, loads of cars are now driving up towards us, lights on, trying to ram us off the road. We're now involved in a car chase. We've then had call with the car in front. Look, whatever happens, make your way to the extraction point. Every man for yourself. Just do what you can to get out of here. The cars have all chased the cars in front. We're in a car behind. That we've lost sight of them. They're onto the distance. We can't see where they are. We've rolled up to a checkpoint full of police, all armed. Starts waving around. The dad's there with his brothers, all of his friends. It's just now chaos. They've run over to the car. They're trying to drag us out of the car. They've smashed my window to the left, punched me in the face. They're trying to pull me out the car. The police have come over. They've moved them out the way, took the keys out the ignition. We were just acting stupid. We're tourists. What's going on? What's going on? We've been to the beach. All our bags are in the back. What's happened? Got no idea. What is this? Anyway, they took us to the police station. But where we've been is just like a brick building police station out in the middle of nowhere. They must be thinking, fucking hell, what have we got? We've got these Brits on our hands now. They threw us in a cell. The three of us sat on a bench and left the door open. I'm telling them, get the British Embassy on the phone. They're saying, fuck your British Embassy. The dad and his kids are coming in. They're taking videos of us, doing all these signs. So we just thought, we're fucked, basically. Tunisia's cell. No one knows we're here. These are all corrupt. The dad and the police all look like they're in with each other. We've been sat there for some time. Then all of a sudden, the guy that was taken out in the garden has been brought into the cells. And he's just looked and he's pointed at one of the guys that was with us in the middle. And as soon as he's done that, the policeman's just run over and just whacked him 3 times, front hand, back hand, front hand. And we're just like, fuck, you got to take it. We can't admit it wasn't him. It was somebody else. He just had to take it. And we've sat there for some time now. He's gone off him. He's gone out. I've tried to ring my dad in my pocket, saying, get the British Embassy on the phone. He's just been pocket dialed off me. I've given him a little message. And then all of a sudden they've come back in, the police, and he's pointed at me, you come with me. So I'm thinking, fuck, where's he taking me now? Out on my own. The dad, everybody's out there. The police is out there. He's walked me into a room and he's just looked at the woman, sat there with the 2 children and looked at me. I've seen the woman. She's there in tears. The 2 kids are just playing, like not caring the world. There's some little toys on the floor. And he's looked at me and he's gone, have you seen this woman before? And I just went, I've never seen this woman in my life. And she said the same. He asked her, she went, I've never seen this man in my life. And it just killed me inside because I'm just thinking a few hours before, I'm running down the drive trying to get them out of the situation. It's again, another failed operation. She's sat there now, the kid's taken away from her. And she just looked so helpless. They've done the same with the 2 other guys. And then they've got the kids back. They've got the mother. They let us go. So some messing around, some chatting, they've let us go. So now we've been escorted up to the highway, no window in the car, we're driving and making our way to the extraction point. All this time in the back of my head, I'm thinking, they'll follow us or they know where we're going to go, or maybe they've seen little maps of the extraction or details. What's happened to the other 2 guys? We don't know where they are. How come she's there but they're not? What's happened? We didn't know. So we've got to the extraction location. We've parked the hire car, got to the beach, dug little shell scrapes, put ourselves in. We had a few hours there was doing like a little sentry routine. And then we had comms with the yacht that was incoming through this window that we'd arranged. And we packed our bags up. We're running along the beach. The tender's coming in from the yacht. Then all of a sudden, like out of a Hollywood film in slow motion, the 2 guys just come running over the mound. They'd been running through the night. They'd escaped. They'd hitchhiked a taxi, managed to get dropped off at the location. How they got through the checkpoints, I'll never know. And they just made it by the skin of their teeth. So we're running. We joined them together, got onto the tender. 2 bootnecks, Matt and Steve. Great guys, became good friends with them after. Rescued us. Like, fucking love bootnecks. Get us to the tender, back to the yacht. And it was just bittersweet because, yeah, we've escaped that situation we was in, but we're now leaving without the woman and the kids, what we'd set out to do. And what Gary had told us is when they was in the car, the police had set a stinger across the road, bust their tyres, they've gone off road. They briefed the woman and said, whatever happens, just deny any knowledge of knowing if the guys, if you ever see them. And that's essentially when she was asked if she knew us and she said no. That's what saved us.
Incredible story, mate. I mean, were there any points during that where you honestly were kind of like feared for your life sort of thing? You didn't know what was going to happen. Like you said, no one knows you're there. You're in an environment, it's very corrupt. You know, these police, they're all seemingly in it together. Did you ever think, I ain't getting out of this alive at any point?
I thought that in the police cell. When the dad was coming in with the video and the phones and they were making comments and things, I did think that then. And then when they stood me up and walked me out of that, I was walking down a corridor. I had no idea where I was going or what I was getting took to. So, yeah, I did think that at that point. But essentially, the other 2 guys, one had tried to join the Marines, but only got halfway through. So technically, he was still a civilian and the other guy was a civilian. So the difference in the mindsets when we was in that situation, they were maybe having a little bit of a wobble and thinking, fuck. Whereas because I'd had all the military training and been trained for occasions like this, or what happens when you're captured by the enemy, and a mindset that you go into, I was able to adopt that and just try and stick to the mission, stay focused, and essentially just try and stay mentally strong to get through that.
Yeah, I mean, my next question would have been, how do you handle the pressures, you know, particularly when things go wrong? So even though you've just had all that traumatic experience, it seemingly didn't put you off from close protection, because then obviously you went and did other things as well. So just to put a bit of a more of a positive spin, obviously you touched on Elton John. Talk us through that. What was that like? Because I know you spent a few summers with Elton, didn't you? So talk us through how that progress working with him.
Yeah, so when I've come back from that job, the guys that I met, they introduced me to maritime security. I'll come to Elton, but they introduced me to maritime security. So I kind of went down that route after the Tunisia. Whilst I was doing the RST back before Ibiza 2008, the guy who had that security company, like I said, he had the Elton John contract. When I came back, I've done little bits of jobs here and there. He put me forward for an interview with David, and that was to go to Nice in 2009 for my first summer. So I've gone and had my interview with David. I've been accepted. Great, we want to have you on board. Gone out to Nice 2009 for my first summer. Met Elton John, side of the villa. He was just off to play tennis. He waited to give me a hug. Introduced, a little bit starstruck, it's Elton John. And then spent my first summer there. And I'd done 4 summers in total. Great times, magical memories, great clients. Elton is everything what you would expect a megastar to be like. Huge character, captivates any room, great storyteller, the ultimate professional, loves the fans, like literally the fans. I've been on a gig with Elton where we flew into Sicily, private jet, police escort to the venue. It was an amphitheatre, and we've gone out, he's on stage, it starts raining, but it gets worse, torrential rain. He's got just a little canopy above the piano, the rain's coming in sideways. I'm stood to the side, no cover, can't even have an umbrella because it would just blow off. The wind was even getting that bad. And everyone thought he was going to stop. And he didn't. The fans were still there. And he played nearly a 90-minute set through torrential rain. I've not been that wet since Wet and Dry in the Royal Marines. I was piss wet through to the bone, freezing cold. And he just didn't stop. They kept coming, wiping down the piano, and he cracked on to the end. And then when I asked him in the car, what was your reason? Like, why did you push on? Everyone was telling you to like cut it short or only do half of the set. And he just said, the fans. He said they were still singing along. They've came out, they've paid the money, and they were still there, and he didn't want to let them down. Like the level of dedication, the loyalty that he has to them was just insane.
He comes from that era, doesn't he? I mean, I know he did Glastonbury last year or the year before, and that kind of said it was his bow out. I think he had a couple more tours, but he's probably one of the last remaining true rock stars, if you will, of that era where they fully committed, whereas you get, not to tarnish them all with the same brush, but a lot of modern day artists, they are that kind of diva-esque, like in a situation like that, it's raining, we'll call it off, we'll just pull the plug. Whereas Elton's one of those, or certainly comes across, you know him better than me, he's still got that dedication. He knows that the fans are why he is where he's at, sort of thing. So I think that's sick. Obviously, you know, I don't want to segue too much because I'm sure you've got more stories with Elton John, but just tell us about a few other people who you've worked with, any high-profile names, or even just high-profile people who maybe we don't know, you know, household names. I know you've worked for a couple of royalties here and there in different countries, haven't you? So I'll leave that to you, Charlie, to tell who you want to tell.
So with the close protection, my close protection years were like 5 years. So during that time, you kind of don't just go one job, then another, and that's it. It's like one client, then the other client, then back to the other client, then another client, then you're here, then back to that client. So the 5 years was probably the most colourful, adventurous, and amazing experiences throughout my whole career. 4 summers in the south of France with Elton John. I was doing maritime security for the super yachts transiting through the Indian Ocean and Gulf of Aden for the King of Qatar, his fleet of yachts for protection. They were great experiences there. I've then gone back out to Iraq doing hostile close protection, spent some time there, back to the sandpit. Treble the money that I was getting in the military, probably half the risk. Whilst I was on leave, this is how I've gone into that side of this type of clientele. Whilst I was on leave, I get a call from the company that I'd worked for doing the super yachts, and it was to take Emma Watson to Bangladesh. I even had to Google who Emma Watson was. I'd not seen any of the Harry Potters, so Hermione Granger. But the company asked me to do the job. It didn't matter who the client was. I was saying yes anyway, because these guys ran this company, ex-special forces. The type of clientele that they had was like second to none. The world's richest and most famous. So I've agreed. I've gone out to Bangladesh with Emma Watson. That was a great experience, a great time. Daniel Radcliffe, I'd done a month after, took him to Moscow. He went to St. Petersburg for his 21st birthday. I flew back early because I went and joined Elton John for the second summer. After that summer with Elton, I then went to Katy Perry and Russell Brand's wedding in India. Everyone always thinks I've got loads of gossip or stuff to say about that, and I actually haven't.
I'm sort of listening,
Perry,
I haven't here, like, Harry Potter, Hermione Granger, Russell Brand, Katy Perry. It's great, mate. Yeah, sorry, I've interrupted you.
But with the Katy Perry one, basically, they were getting married in a tiger reserve in Ranthambore in India, and we were just there as a 6-man team to facilitate the security of the event. It wasn't like a close protection role as such. But it was more so to stop any press or paparazzi getting in. They didn't want any pictures or anything to be taken. And I would say my coolest story from that gig was at the end. I had to run Katy Perry to a helicopter under my arm with a scarf hiding her so no one could take any pictures, and run her onto the helicopter. I felt like I was a scene out of The Bodyguard. Slow motion music and put into the helicopter.
Yeah, that'll be going straight on my CV. Yeah, okay. Well, I suppose with the close protection, you've touched on sort of like there's a lot of sort of aspects similar to what you're doing in the Marines and the military. Did you find that we asked you about your takeaways from the Marines? Did you find you got a lot of takeaways from the close protection gigs as well? Like, how did that kind of shape you physically, mentally, that sort of thing?
I think with the close protection years, it was just a window into this exclusive world that you would never know exists. I mean, remember, I was brought up through various places, and then Sunderland, then to be sat on, say, a super yacht off the Bay of Saint-Tropez with Elton John and his billionaire and celebrity friends, having dinner with them, looking around the table thinking, wow, this young kid told he wouldn't even make it through the Marines is sat here now protecting one of the world's most famous pop stars. That's a real pinch me moment there. And then the experiences is just how the other half live and what is that, like the super yacht industry. I would never have known about the super yacht industry as a kid. You don't, do you, what goes on there? So to experience that lifestyle, again, incredible experiences.
Fantastic. And before we I know you've probably got a plethora of stories from your time in close protection. Before we kind of segue into your next chapter, is there any other stories you'd like to tell us doing close protection that you feel you could benefit?
I can touch on other clients that I could.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so I don't have to give details as such, but just to paint a picture of how I was excelling through them years, because it makes the rise was incredible, but then it makes the fall even greater to see where I'd reached in the close protection years, and it'll segue into nice of why did you make that decision when you was doing this, and then you led to that. So as I was excelling throughout the close protection years, I was then team leader for, he used to be New York's richest man, billionaire American guy. I would fly out to the Caribbean or the Mediterranean on board his super yacht, 80-meter yacht, and then would be head of his security whilst he was on holiday with his family and things. And this guy was like ruthless, stern. Everyone was on eggshells, scared around him. No one says no to Mr. P, nobody. And we was in Copenhagen once, and he asked to get a reservation at this restaurant. Now, this restaurant in Copenhagen, it doesn't matter who you are, you're not jumping the list. You have to go on the list like everybody else. So he's then had to go for plan B. So we've gone to an amazing restaurant. Honestly, if anybody went there, you'd be like, wow, this is incredible. We've gone to this restaurant, but it was just in a foul mood. So he's gone down, they're having a few courses, they're about 20, 30 minutes in. So me and the other security lad, we're sat off at the bar. And I was like, should we get some ice cream? He's like, go on. So we've got some ice cream, so we're there scanning ice cream. Next thing, big mess, kerfuffle, the boss is up, marching off. The PA's like, get the cars. So we just then had to scramble into the cars. I'm into the minibus with the boss, driving back. He's gone to the PA. Whatever she was called, pass me that bill. Let's look at the bill. He's looking through the bill. I don't know why he's looking through the bill. The guy's worth billions. He's gone, ice cream? Who the fuck had ice cream? I'm sat in the front going, oh, fuck. I'm like, cheeky, that boss, innit? I said, ice cream. I said, you've only had your first courses. I went, I'll make sure that's sorted. But anybody else, he just went mad, you know what I mean? And I'm just sat there dying inside thinking, fuck it, I'll fired off the job for ice cream.
So did you get away with that?
I got away with it, he didn't know it was us.
Yeah. Well, hopefully he doesn't listen. Is he still alive, is he?
He's still alive now.
Hopefully he doesn't listen to this podcast or he doesn't remember.
One with their kids as well. So the kids was only 16 and we'd be taking them around all bars and clubs and everything in the Caribbean. They was allowed to drink. And we took them out one night and it was in the yacht club in St. Bart's. So they've done an order. So as the waiter's gone past, I was like, what did you order? They're like, oh, they got sex on the beach. I said, right, first one alcoholic, rest virgin, no alcohol. So they've had about 4 or 5 drinks. These kids are falling all over, acting wasted. The next day, they sat with sunglasses on. They're like, Charlie, tell Dad, how many drinks did we have last night? He's looked at me. I went, yeah, he's had a few, you know. Must have been about 4 or 5. Like, to the boss, one drink. But no, they were just acting wasted.
Oh, no, that's cool, mate.
So as I was team leader for Mr. P, I then became team leader for another family, the Cronkeys, Mr. and Mrs. K. Mrs. Kroenke is part of the Walmart family, so one of the richest families in the world. Mr. Kroenke, Stan, owns Arsenal Football Club. Had some cool times with them. The contrasting client from the Cronkeys to Mr. P, everything was a lot more fun, relaxed. They've involved the crew, 4th of July. We was in Saint-Tropez, Nikki Beach, big massive tables. You got all the family, all the crew involved. We'd have sports days. We'd be taking them to clubs in Saint-Tropez dancing. Like the contrast with them on holiday was it was like night and day. But a great client and they were some fun times. So I'd excel from team leader for this client. I then now became the Cronkeys team leader for theirs, for the Caribbean, the south of France. And then it was after that, I was then asked to fly out to the Bahamas. And that's where I met the Countess and then became bodyguard for the Countess before the wheels fell off.
So obviously you established yourself there with the close protection. You're brushing shoulders with the rich and powerful, famous people. And then obviously you've mentioned this earlier, kind of like your life pivoted. So talk us through that, sort of paint the picture before the full pivot of where you was at, kind of thing. And your transition, I should have mentioned there, from close protection to this moment.
So this was in 2012. I had the call to go out to the Bahamas to work for the Countess. I also met my girlfriend at that time, so I was in a new relationship, which would then alter and make my decisions further down the line. So for the next 12 months, I'm in the Bahamas, I'm in America, I'm in the UK, I'm in Europe, flying around the world. I'd say if Carlsberg did clients, that would be it. It was essentially everything in my close protection, years that I'd been searching for, full-time client, an amazing job, an amazing lifestyle. She had 4 kids. I helped look after the kids in the Bahamas. I take them to swimming, take them training, I'd even take them to Miami for the weekend on my own while she went off to New York and stuff, take them like shopping and to the cinema and stuff. So it was a really great time. The client as well that looked after the Countess, she was just an amazing, caring person, got really involved. It's in the sense of we just train together and stuff, go to the beach together, we go shopping, all of these things. So it became like a friendship as well as work. I was excelling through that, but also in my personal life, I feel like all of my time off, I was trying to compensate in my relationship for being away. So when I come home, it was holidays. It was trying to probably live that lifestyle that I've lived with the rich and famous myself back home. And it was kind of coming between us a little bit. So I've decided, which I knew in my heart it was wrong, to take a summer break. And this was where I've made decisions with my heart instead of my head. Me now, looking back, I didn't need a summer break. I don't even know why I chose to do that. I was to go to Ibiza for 4 months. Previously, I'd been to Ibiza 4 times the year before on holiday. It was great, just little stopovers there. I didn't need to go again for the summer. I'd already lived that time when I was 24. Trying to do it now, after all these years as a close protection officer, it was a bad decision, which essentially, that's where I was feeling the shame, the regret, gone to Ibiza. I've chose that path against everything really of the path that I was already on.
So obviously Ibiza, a lot of people have that stigmatization around it. I mean, I've been there, I've shot a podcast there as well. It's so easy, susceptible to fall into traps that you're probably alluding to, the party lifestyle, drugs, alcohol, that kind of thing. Is that kind of like where you're heading with this one, Charlie? Is that where the wheels came off, as you paraphrase?
Yeah, totally. So I've drove to Ibiza and I spent 4 months there. When I've arrived, I moved in with 2 tour managers of 2 of the island's most popular DJs. It was Jamie Jones and Seth Troxler. We've literally had access to all of the party scene and everything else that came with it. You get swept along. You know what Ibiza's like. You can get fully swept along in that party lifestyle. It's like an alternative reality out there where every day was just partying, beach, food, everything. I stopped training. I think that's a big key factor into where my mindset shifted. I fell off exercise. The one thing since my young age that's helped me stay grounded, focused, and on track, if you like, and maybe going off the rails after like Afghanistan or as a civilian, was keeping fit, keeping active, keeping healthy. In Ibiza with the partying, I stopped exercising, stopped training, became a shadow of my former self. And as the season went on, the more drugs I was taking, deep down I knew it was wrong, and I was filled with them shameful feelings of regret and remorse. I kept taking more drugs to try and shut out the feelings. On the outside to everyone else, it looked like he's in Ibiza, he's having an amazing time. But for me, behind the scene and internally, like I was hating myself. And then the more I was the taking the drugs, it was just a shame. And I was just literally digging myself into a hole that was getting deeper throughout the whole summer.
Would you say you've got an addictive personality, Charlie?
100%.
Because I think with that, and obviously what you've done up until the build-up is, and obviously I've met you first time today, so correct me if I'm wrong. When you've got your environment, and because I find addiction sort of like with goal setting, and obviously you touched on the fitness, that's kind of my solace. You know, it's my why. I don't do it to be the fittest, fastest, strongest. I do it because that's a goal for me to achieve. Going out a run in the morning, I've done that. That's achieved for the day. And that's where the addictiveness comes in. But obviously your environment there is you've gone from the Marines, you've wanted to achieve X, Y, Z. Close protection, you've wanted to achieve X, Y, Z. So your X, Y, Z when you're in Ibiza is partying. And that, again, falls down to, well, you're in that environment, so that addictive personality is going to translate. Would you kind of know what I'm alluding to? Would you say?
Mate, 100%. Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head. So throughout that young age, I've always had a purpose or a challenge, and I've always been mentally stimulated that way to excel or prove to myself I can do these things. And that's why a life with challenge gives you purpose, because it always keeps you motivated, gives you that drive and a sense of fulfillment. Throughout the military, I had that. You were right, close protection, I had that. I wanted to excel. But also as well, when you come back from Afghanistan and you experience that level of adrenaline and that rush of maybe being in a firefight with the enemy or close to life and death, you try and chase that in different ways. I bought a motorbike, I could hardly ride it, riding fast, and I was capable. It was that rush, it was that thrill, it was that adrenaline. Then I've replicated and replaced that with work, the rich and famous, the billionaires, the yachts, that lifestyle. And then when I've gone to Ibiza, I've had no purpose. Like you said, just partying. I'm not training. I've got no challenges. I'm just left each day without really any drive. And that's essentially, for me, the worst thing that can happen. I need to have that structure. Or like you said, you train for your own mental and physical well-being, not to prove anything. It's just to yourself. So in Ibiza, I had that. And that, yeah, essentially that's where the wheels come off.
How did that eventually catch up? Because I suspect it was over an accumulation of partying, drugs, drinking, that sort of thing. Where did that sort of leave you towards the tail end of that?
Well, Ibiza has a dark side. You might know a lot of criminal activity goes on there. Where there's drugs, there's crime. And my apartment was burgled at the end of the summer. And I had, so I'll pull out that a little bit. So don't know if you or believe or think about the law of attraction and the universe and how things happen, and certain events in our lives are meant to happen in order for us to go on a new path and find our true purpose. I'd give up everything that I'd set out to achieve, visualized, asked for, however you like it, wrote down, and I give it up. And I went to Ibiza to take drugs. So I've chosen a new path. I've gone against my gut instinct, excuse me, my heart, and I've ended up taking drugs in Ibiza. At the end of the summer, my apartment was burgled. I had my laptop, my Rolex that I bought after my first summer with Elton John, and my iPad, and all the money I had to return home with taken. So what was left on the floor was the drugs. So I believe that was the universe's message to me to say, you had everything you asked for and worked hard for to achieve. You've gave it all up and you chose a new path of partying and taking drugs. You want the drugs? There you go. So I now had to borrow money to get back home. So I'm now in a little bit of a desperate position. I'm skint, still got a bad habit. I've returned from Ibiza, still taking drugs, and got no work. I'm back home, starting to come down, still taking drugs. That's then led on to me making another bad decision after another.
So obviously we kind of know where you're going with this. I would imagine you're kind of putting the line in the dots nicely for us. You've no money, and obviously you've been wrapped up in a drug lifestyle. Do you want to kind of talk us through how you then went on to make money and sort of keep the wheels going as best as they could at that stage?
Yeah, so when I've returned back from Ibiza, I was only back 3 weeks. I've got involved with some people, been asked to do a driving job to collect a shipment of drugs. I've agreed. I thought the money that I get paid off that job would pay back the money that I'd borrowed. I'd then go back to work. In my head, I was a bit delusional. My perception of reality was completely distorted. Whenever you take drugs, you think you're in control. And when I was taking them every day, it was like I was living this alter ego and thinking, oh, fuck it, it'll be all right. I'll do this and I'll do that. Whereas Charlie before Ibiza wouldn't have even entertained that phone call. Someone wouldn't have even phoned me to ask me to do that. But because I'd transitioned into becoming this new person and trying to go along with this thing that just was so far removed from what I once was, I've gone through with it. I was ignoring my gut instinct, all of the warning signs, everything telling me not to go ahead with the job. I've gone through, I've collected the drugs, and I've walked into a surveillance operation. So myself and my girlfriend, we were arrested, thrown into the cells. Still to this day, whenever I see blue lights now in my mirror, it just reminds me of that time where I knew I fucked my life up and I was now about to embark on this new path of that pain, misery and suffering, and there was no way out.
Obviously, you was good. What if it is a question for you? Maybe you might dissect it a little bit later on. What was you more? I've got to use the word scared, but what was you more fearful of? The time, like for instance, where you was in Tunisia and you didn't know where you was going to be taken, or the fact that you was down this downward spiral, which you was very aware of. It's just obviously you was kind of in too deep, and potentially you was going to prison. That's it. Now, where was you more fearful in which scenario?
I'd say the drugs in the prison. Because the attachment of drugs and the stigma that comes with it and what I was about to now put my family and everybody else around me through was a lot worse than myself in Tunisia. And one thing my dad told me never to get involved with was drugs. And when I was arrested, you get a phone call and I had to phone my dad just to let him know where we were, what happened. And I remember they gave me the number out of my phone and I've rang my dad, he's picked up the phone. And I've gone, Dad, I've been arrested. I'm in the police station. I need help. Straight away, he said, what is it, son? Is it fighting? Are you okay? And I just gone, no, Dad, it's drugs. As soon as I said that, he put the phone down. And then I've had to go back to my cell, knowing how disappointed he was, how much I'd let him down. And the thing with the drugs, there was no way out. Like, you just feel helpless yourself. And you're now just about to embark on a path of, there's no, oh, I'm sorry, can I go? And they'll let you off for a slap on the wrist. I knew this was going to be yours. And it was going to be a big, big challenge and a big lesson that I had to embark and had to go through to come out the other side to lead me to where I am now.
I think as well, just listening to that, and obviously I asked you to make the comparison of the two. I suppose in the one, yeah, you kind of feared for your life there in Tunisia, but you know in the back of your mind, if you come out of this, you was trying to do a good thing. Was it even when you do come out of this with the drug scenario, you know, it was the wrong thing to do, and you know, it is one of those, and obviously the burden and the shame with the parents and everything. So no, I just wanted to get that to kind of paint the picture for the listeners. Can you go through kind of like, just to give us an outline as much as you can? Obviously, I'll let you lead on this with what the actual arrest was. That's kind of like the finer details, what you was arrested for specifically. Obviously, if there's anything you can't say on camera, we fully appreciate that. I'll let you sort of lead on that, Charlie.
Yeah, so I was arrested with 35 kilos of MDMA, which was Class A. So the charge was conspiracy to supply. That came with a 10-year prison sentence. So I'd have to do 5 years inside and then 5 years on license out in the community.
And how old was you roughly at this point?
30.
So it's quite, you know.
So from 30 to 40, that 10-year period was literally the challenge of overcoming the mistake that I'd made. And we'll come into the year off my license, turning 40, how it was a fresh start, a new chapter later. But yeah, all of my 30s was going through that nightmare of overcoming that mistake.
Yeah. It's such a wild transition. You've kind of had all this, obviously your childhood, you've kind of had to been tough and what have you and bully the bullies, to go into the Marines in your 20s and doing all this, you know, obviously the Marines and the close protection. So then obviously your next decade is prison life. Like it's a full so many different chapters. Have you thought of writing a book, Charlie? Just
Well, I remember. We'll come to. I remember my first, only because it's Christmas time now. My first Christmas inside. I remember sat there on my own with a blue plate in Winson Green, which was the worst prison of them all, the worst Christmas dinner you can imagine. Looking out the bars on my window, thinking, this time last year, I'm in St. Bart's with the Cronkies at these amazing beach restaurants, living the holiday lifestyle with the super rich. And now that it's transitioned to where I'm sat here now on my own in this prison cell thinking, fuck, like, how did this happen? Like, every day I was with my thoughts and I analysed it so many times. I hit rock bottom, my first time in jail, the first 3 months on remand. I was stressed, depressed, I was smoking, I wasn't training, I was so unhealthy, beating myself up inside of like, what have I done? Why am I here? But I knew obviously what I'd done. I just had to accept it. And then that's, I think, what served me well when I've gone in after the trial is just accepting my mistake, owning my mistake, knowing that it's me that's had to live with it, but it's me that can also come back from this.
Obviously, you touched on there with the law of attraction, and I'd say you're quite a spiritual person in that sense. Even during those dark moments in prison, was there any thoughts of like this? There's a reason this has happened. Did that kind of give you a little bit of solace, a bit of comfort, or did that just not enter your head at all? The law of attraction dissipated at that point?
No, totally. My whole sentence, that was in the forefront of my mind, and I knew. I used to say to my parents, look, this has happened essentially for me to find my true path and my true purpose. Who knows what might have happened if I got through with that drug run? I might have done another one. You don't know. Every day inside, so basically I was stripped of everything. I lost everything. I knew I couldn't go back to close protection. I'd have to start my life all over again. So I knew now I'd have to find a new purpose. And for me, if I'd have tried to transition into what I'm doing now after close protection, I wouldn't have been able to do it. I would have been too unsettled. I would have still been chasing the highs, and I would have found it quite mundane, and it would have just given me itchy feet to travel and go off again. Whereas now I appreciate just day-to-day life, the normality, the normal routine of training, whereas I would have struggled to have that before. Prison just grounded me, stripped me bare of everything. I've had to rediscover myself all over again, look inside myself, dig deep, and find out who I really was, especially through those testing times of behind the door, alone, day in, day out, and all you're left with is your thoughts. To try and stay positive is hard, but positivity is a choice. And in jail, like anywhere, perception is everything. So how I chose to perceive my situation, good or bad, would determine how tough or smooth the days would go. So in jail, you wake up, you're surrounded by negativity. It's a breeding ground for criminal activity. People thrive off violence, crime in there, drugs, trouble are there whenever you want it. So to try and rise above that, stay positive, stay level-headed, keep your head down, get on with your courses, stay out of trouble, is a challenge in itself. But again, it's a challenge that I took on and I've seen, do the best I can, do my level 2, my level 3 PT courses. When I get out, I'm going to start a new path now, a new purpose. I'm going to train people, put all my experience from prison, from military, into helping others become, say, mentally strong, physically active, which, as things unfolded, I've done everything that I said I would do, that I visualized, that I wrote down. I've essentially materialized it all into the physical realm now since my license has ended.
I think as well, just listening to you describe it, and again, it sort of ties into law of attraction in essence, is I think had it not been for the fact you'd been in the Marines, you probably wouldn't have been able to do the close protection, and the close protection, you probably wouldn't have been able to do, the party lifestyle kind of thing. And then obviously even the party lifestyle, the come downs, I often think, not that I'm endorsing that lifestyle at all, but sometimes I think you need to go in those dark places, particularly mentally, to prepare you. So obviously I do a lot of endurance challenges now, not to kind of put it back on me. I don't think I'll be able to get through those, like, running marathons, doing triathlons, that sort of thing, had it not been for the fact, because I was an addict, had it not been for the fact that I'd gone through that very dark period, and it kind of made me, the fact that I got over that made me mentally resilient to do that. So would you say that's right? Oh, go on, sorry.
No, what was your turning point then from the addiction to channel it into what you do now?
So my turning point was a failed suicide attempt, living back at me parents, and I'm really got a close relationship with my mum now. In fact, we're going on holiday for Christmas this year, and she basically made the necessary call, CPR, to save me, sort of thing. Wow. So didn't happen overnight, but what I found is things started to, again, law of attraction materialise. I seen an advert for a charity about doing Everest Base Camp. Yeah. And then I got a place in the London Marathon through the ballot, which was the first time doing it. So again, it's almost as if things were coming into place. And then ever since then, I've never looked back. I'm not teetotal as such. I still have the occasional drink now and again, but I kind of know my environment when to do that now. You turn this into interviewing me now, yeah.
No, because
so that's interesting.
No, it's great to hear, because it's the levels or the lows that you went to, but everybody has a shifting or a turning point in life to take them to maybe where you are now, and you had that. You had to go to the lowest point, and after that, the only way from there was up. So you probably wouldn't excel and be as mentally strong now if you hadn't experienced that rock bottom.
No, 100%. And putting that kind of ethos on yourself, I think it's everything that you've kind of gone through until this point it's like it's been preparation for your next chapter. And then of course you've done time in prison, which I'm under no illusion will have prepared you certainly mentally for what you're doing now. So just tell us a little bit about the obviously you've come out of prison. Is there anything you want to touch on before we go into that? Well,
coming out of prison, I was 34, 40 pounds to my name, starting my life all over again, excited, new challenge. But then after working in a local gym for so long, we went into lockdown. So prison prepared me for lockdown. So I always say that was the best bang up I ever done. Yeah. I was free. I could come and go as I pleased. I could eat what I want, speak to who I wanted to. I could exercise every day. So for me, it was a great time. And I adapted, seen an opportunity, which was surreal. I was doing workouts on my own in a prison cell. In lockdown, I was now doing workouts on a driveway, on an Instagram Live. Other people joining me. That then progressed to, I'd done a live in the Trafford Centre, loads of people around. And then I'd done a one in HYROX, big shopping centre, loads of people around again. So the workouts had gone for myself as I excelled, other people around. And then I became and developed Commando Charlie throughout the lockdown. So how that panned out, going through that difficult situation, again, I've managed to see the positives and develop a business and a brand out of it.
So obviously with Commando Charlie, obviously in reference there to the Marines, how did you find that was growing, sort of thing? Because was it just lockdown and you did find your social media followers were going up, or talk us through that period, how you grew that throughout lockdown? So
essentially that, I was doing live workouts every day. I had a WhatsApp group with the gym, sending workouts in there all the time. And I think I'd done more live workouts and sent workouts and was busy in lockdown than I have still been to this day, because I thought I've been able to stay physically active, mentally strong in a prison cell. No equipment, no gym, no excuses. Lockdown was exactly the same. I thought I'm in a position now to help people find and see another way that they might not be aware of, but I can help guide and inspire and motivate them through the workouts. We can get through this. People went sort of two ways in lockdown. You could have gone down the other way, feet up, relaxing, a few beers here and there. Or some people out running workouts, got fit and active and went down that way. As the months went on, my following grew. I then collabed with a few brands, which got a little bit better, gave me more exposure. Things started going from strength to strength there. I also run a hiking group, Commando Adventures, where for the last few years, we take groups of people up and around the mountains in the Lake District, Wales. To be fair, I love that. I remember when I was in prison, I used to dream about going out on like hiking and all the things in nature that you take for granted that you don't really appreciate. When I was inside, I'd like dream about them days. So now to be able to do that for people as a group and share them experiences, like it's incredible. Sunrises, sunsets. I didn't see a sunrise for 5 years. When I see a sunrise now, it's like, wow, symbolizes freedom and a fresh start.
I love that, because I mean I'm very big on sort of like being out there in nature and whatever, and I go on record to say, obviously you've been around probably more places than me. If we had the weather over here in the UK, I think certainly with the countryside, whether it's Wales, the Highlands, the Lake Districts, whatever, or even down south, I think it'd be one of the countries that everyone will come to because of that. It's just obviously we're not guaranteed with the weather, but yeah, just thought I'd mention that because obviously you touched on.
Well, look at lockdown. How good was the weather in lockdown? Yeah. Everyone was out exploring. Hiking became a really popular thing. Everyone realised there was so much more to do in this country than, say, go to the pub. And it is a shame. I do have to sometimes alter some of my locations and things because of the weather. And that is frustrating.
Yeah. I mean, just going back to lockdown, I mean, I got myself a road bike. And there was no cars about neither because everyone was obviously hibernating. And obviously as we come out of lockdown, I ended up hating cycling. But not because I enjoyed the fitness elements. It was just obviously traffic. But yeah, I loved it. And what I didn't realise is that, I mean, I live in a little suburban town outside of Liverpool, and if you just go like a couple of miles north or a couple of miles south or a couple of miles west, it's so beautiful. It's just rural everywhere, places like kind of, Bickerstaff and Formby. And it's just, and I didn't realise that until I got out there on the bike.
It give you a reason to explore.
Exactly, yeah. So I think I took a lot of positives from lockdown. Like, of course,
I used to say to people, take advantage of this time now and the quietness and the stillness and the time of everybody just to be able to be present and appreciate each other and family and friends, because we'll probably never live through an experience like that again.
No, quite right. Obviously, you developing Commando Charlie, developing your brand. It's almost like, I think, a full circle moment, because you said at the start, you abided by fitness. You had to keep yourself fit and active. That was you. And obviously you've applied that to the Marines. You've applied it to close protection. You've applied it in prison as well and creating routine. It's almost like everything's kind of come full circle, and that's now become who you are, your own identity. And we'll obviously touch on, for those who know you from the HYROX scene, in a moment, but would you say that kind of the fitness and mental resilience has helped redefine who you are now, sat in front of us, than where you were back in Sunderland, let's say? Yeah,
100%. I say fitness for me, it's always been my go-to, my therapy, no matter how big or small. You don't have to do every workout as a death workout redlining, but even just a little bit of exercise for mental health, like, I recommend it highly to anybody. How things have come full circle. So my whole year's 30 to 40, prison, license. I couldn't leave the country for 5 years. Now this year my license ended, and I love this because it just shows you that you can manifest and attract things, and things do happen for a reason. You might not understand why now, but later on it may become apparent. My license ended in March. I qualified for HYROX World Championships. Out of all the places in all the world, there was in Nice. So I've gone back to the south of France, the first time I can travel in that year. Bear in mind, for the last 10 years, I've not travelled. I was in Nice before I went to prison. Gone back out to Nice with my girlfriend, some close friends. I was like a tourist guide, showing them all the places we used to go with Elton, all the places I used to go on my time off. I know the place really well, so to have that experience again was just incredible. A few months after that, I spoke at International Fitness Summit. Of all the places in all the world, it was in Ibiza. So it's took me back to the island, to Ibiza, to share my story about what happened the last time that I was in Ibiza. So that was two synchronicities there, full circle moments. And then on the 11th month, November, this is the craziest one. In Remembrance Weekend in Manchester, I won my first HYROX age group. Now, how the significance unfolds is it was 11 years, exactly the same weekend earlier, that was my first weekend in prison. I remember in a prison cell, me and this Chinese man sat there watching Remembrance Parade on telly. I'm sat there, head in my hands, thinking, fuck. But exactly 11 years later, I'm now on stage with the #1 flag on my 11th HYROX race as well. So it was my 11th race on the 11th month, first year off license, and a first place podium. If we go a little bit deeper, the time I got was 1 hour 4, 16 seconds. 4 + 1 + 6 is 11. So 1-1-1. Just
that is spooky, isn't it? And also the whole time you're talking there, that kind of combines two things that you've touched on throughout this interview. One, the law of attraction, and two, that ability of always wanting to, your why for doing things, you're always wanting to prove. And I think in that instance, they've both kind of come together.
It's all like the universe is aligned.
Exactly. And it's almost like you've gone back to the places where, like for instance with Ibiza, where that was a place that probably a dark period, certainly a dark period for you. And it's kind of like you've gone back there, now you're doing something positive.
And I made peace with the island. Yeah. I had a completely different experience there this time. Went to live with my pal. We done fitness. We trained every day. And I came back from there with positive memories, and it's like closure on them chapters. So Nice, I've gone back for HYROX holidays, perfect combination. And I've had closure with Nice, I've had closure with Ibiza. And then on the 11th weekend, on that same weekend, it was as if to say, that's fully behind you now. You're now embarking on your new path. Put that to bed. a fresh chapter. I've just turned 40 as well this year, and a fresh start.
Yeah. And you touched on the manifestation. I go on record to say that's my favourite word, because I'm a firm believer in if you want something hard enough, you can make it happen. And obviously your instance there was getting through your prison time. You made that happen. All these synergies, all these things have come together. You're making that happen. Before I kind of ask you kind of like what's next, I suppose we have to a bit of fan service for anyone who's tuned in. And we've got a little bit of time left. So talk to us kind of like a little bit of how you got into HYROX, some of your obviously we know some of the achievements you've just mentioned, but where are you going and how HYROX has had an impact on your life?
Okay, so I got involved with HYROX a few years ago. I'd done some work for them. I ran their PFT tour in the Northwest. I remember going around gyms, telling everybody about HYROX, what it was. Everyone's looking at me like, what is this? Is it CrossFit? Is it a circuit? Everyone was kind of unknown. Fast forward a few months after that, HYROX is literally the buzzword everywhere. Sold out events. It's incredible. They've literally hit the nail on the head. They found the niche in the market of made it accessible to the everyday gym goer. I fell in love with it because I love that style of training. I love hard, challenging workouts. I love how you can progress, you can build and experience race day with thousands of people. The buzz, the energy, the environment, it's great. And you can always then get loads of takeaways from that. Go back, do your work, go back, test it again. And this year I was made HYROX ambassador for the UK. So that was good to be involved there. A little bit more involved in the race day and the goings on behind the scenes. And as I look forward to next year, I've got a few races abroad booked. I've got Manchester again at the end of January. I can't go to Chicago World Championships, which I qualified for in Manchester, because I can't travel to America with the background, with the criminal record. So I'm going to just have fun with it, do some. I've got Barcelona booked. I'm going to do Glasgow, do Manchester, and see how I get on.
Yeah. I think what I like about HYROX, I mean, I've not done as many as yourself, is the humbling aspect of it. Because I think on paper, a lot of people, because of some of the achievements I've done, I've always said anything I do, I'm great at endurance stuff. Get me to carry on running. That was having this chat before we started recording. Me and my producer was get me to carry on running at my own pace, and I'll go on record to say I'd send it with quite a lot of people. But ask me to run a sub 3 hour marathon, not a chance, sort of thing. And I've never really enjoyed doing stuff fast. But I think on paper, for maybe people who are a bit naive to the compromised aspect of it, is they think, oh, you'll be good at that, or you're the thingy. And to be honest with you, and by no means, I think I've only ever done doubles. I'm doing my first singles next year. I quite like that humbling, because it challenges you, and it's sort of like, right, okay, I need to, because it's all based on time. Listen,
there's
isn't it?
so many levels to HYROX.
I thought, and I suppose you can do that. You kind of look at it and think, well, I do most of these workouts in the gym anyway. I'm pretty strong on the sleds. I've always been good on, even before HYROX was a thing, I used to incorporate a lot of sled work. And but when you combine all those elements together, it's fucking hard. It really is. But I like that aspect of it. And I think as well, like you touched on, the marketing of it's open to anyone. Anyone can do it. It's like CrossFit, where you have to have a certain level of skill, certain level of fitness. And that's what I love about it as well. And I think, like you said, they've got that nailed, where you've got like a 70-year-old like getting on the podium, and I love all that. I love the fact that
in the start pen you can have a 20-year-old and a 70-year-old going around sharing a circuit together. You can have an elite level athlete with your everyday athlete. Like, what an amazing experience to share.
It is awesome, and I can see why it's gained the momentum it has. Obviously, we could do a whole podcast on that. We could do a whole podcast on all your chapters, but certainly with the HYROX one. Where do you see it going, mate? Where do you think it'll get even bigger than where it's at now? And if it does, they're going to have to obviously adapt, like bigger arenas, that sort of thing, to accommodate. Because as you touched on, they're even ballads in the UK. It's selling out too quick now, isn't it, for the UK events? Where's your kind of notion with it, especially being an ambassador? I don't know if you've got any inside intel or...
It's just going to get bigger. More cities, more places. You see now they started off with 1 day, then they went to 2 days. Now most events are 3-day events. Glasgow's actually 4. So it's a 4-day event, and I can imagine it'll sell out. And it's just going to be more of the same. I say to anybody, my best advice, especially for gym owners, go all in on HYROX, especially now while it's thriving and everybody's really enjoying it. I think the UK, we've talked to it more than most. I think Europe's catching us up now, but we are miles ahead in terms of like the popularity and how fast they sell out the events.
Yeah. And you're seeing a lot of more sort of like celebrities and bigger name people. I know, obviously, Lance Armstrong, he jumped on the New York one, didn't he? And then we've had a few, who's that football player who's doing it now? I can't remember. I think he's doing it with his missus. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But yeah, you're getting a lot more buy-in now from bigger people, you know, who are from different fitness backgrounds. And I mean, I've always enjoyed boxing training. I know you've done a little bit of that as well. And I find it very similar in the sense of it's all engine building, isn't it?
Yeah.
You want to maintain, like a boxer will want to maintain for 12 rounds. So it's the same process with that. And I think that's why I get such a buzz out of it. I suppose one last question with HYROX is, did you take to it straight away? Because obviously all the training you've done in the Marines, I know a lot of people from a military background, obviously, you know, Michael Chadwick, we've had him on the show. He found that it was the training he was already doing. So it was kind of like the takeaway from that was he could transition quite easy into that. How did you find it?
I wish HYROX came around when I was in my 20s, when I essentially just left the military. I'd have excelled a lot faster. I'd been in jail all that time. When I was asked to do my work for HYROX, I hadn't ran for 2 years. I didn't, essentially, when I first seen HYROX, I didn't want to do it. I couldn't run. And I thought, wow, all the station's amazing, but it's a run in between each exercise. So then when I've been asked to work for them, I had to start running. So I was really lacking on the running side, station-wise, amazing. But that's all I've had to build on over the last few years is trying to get my running back. In jail, I didn't run for the 5 years, really. On license, I hadn't run for 2 years because of a knee injury. So I'm just finding my running now is actually coming together. The military training, I think more the mindset helped me than anything. Physical-wise, I'm 40 now. It takes a lot longer to recover. I have to be more clever and wiser how I plan and progress my sessions. But I am excited on how my running's coming together and building on that.
I do. I think with running in particular, it's one of the sports. Anyone can do it, but it's running for me is a mental thing. I touched on it. I get up and do it in the morning, not because I'm trying to be like the next David Goggins or anything, but I just find that you get up before the world wakes up. But getting out of bed, I don't jump out of bed. It's a
That's a
test
challenge
for
in
yourself,
itself,
isn't
innit?
it? It's
Yeah.
like, but I do it because I know, one, it's probably going to be the hardest thing I'll do all day.
Yeah.
And two, the buzz you get afterwards, even if you're only going out doing a 5K or something, it's that I've done that now. That's you know, and you're toying with yourself for the first 1K, especially during winter. It's cold, it's dark, it's what am I doing?
Yeah.
But then you sort of build into it. And I go on record say running saved my life in a sense that it was one of those exercises that, yes, okay, I'm never going to be the fastest, but it certainly give me a bit of an awakening and open my mind a bit better. Because you do, I mean, I don't have headphones in when I run now. I know some people do. If I'm on a very long run, I might listen to a podcast. But typically, I'm just alone with my thoughts.
You and your thoughts.
Yeah, it's like my meditation sort of thing.
But like you say, with the running, it is literally just you, your thoughts, and how willing you are going, like willing to push yourself. You don't have to go to a gym. You don't have to lift anything. Just one foot in front of the other.
Yeah, exactly. So obviously, where would you say your next chapter is? Obviously, I know you're tied in with the HYROX stuff now, but I suppose your life's been built on chapters. Where do you foresee your life, the direction
Just
you're
on
going
speaking of running, I've never ran a half marathon or marathon.
Right.
Next year, I'm running 6 half marathons in 12 months for Real Buzz, and it's in line with Make-A-Wish Foundation. My first half marathon is going to be in Berlin, so I'm super excited for that. It's a new challenge, so I'm going to have to really get the miles on the legs. If anything, it's only going to help my HYROX. So that's a next challenge for me for next year, which I'm super excited about.
Awesome. Are you going to kick on and do the full marathon after that, or?
We'll see.
We'll see where we are. You touched on Berlin. I've done the Berlin Marathon. It's a great city to run. It's really flat.
It looks so cool.
So I expect the half marathon. Does that encompass most of the course?
Yeah.
Does it? Yeah. It's a nice flat. It's where Eliud Kipchoge broke the record because it's the fastest, allegedly, course. Not that I was anywhere near him, by the way, but yeah. Okay, mate. We'll have the bow out question now, and then we'll wrap up. It's been a joy speaking to you, mate. But like I ask all the guests, after everything you've told us, what are you now most grateful for in life?
I'd say gratitude is something that you should practice every day, because sometimes it's only when you lose everything that you realize how much you appreciated things or you took things for granted when they're taken away from you. Freedom for me, and the freedom to do what I want, make my own choices now, is something that I'm grateful for every day. Because when you had that taken away from you and someone is dictating your daily routine, your lifestyle, when you can come in and out of a door, it really puts things into perspective. So each day for me now, I'm just grateful for my health, my happiness, and my sound mind.
Awesome, mate. Awesome. Charlie, or Commando Charlie, I'll call you. It's been a pleasure, mate. I was quite excited for this one because I know you've done a few interviews here and there, but you've never really touched in to detail, have you, about your life story? And I know there's probably a load of stuff that we've not touched on, but I suppose that opens doors for you to do other shows and get your story out there in public domain, which is only going to enhance your brand. Just before we close out, how can people, we'll put all the links and everything in the description, but if there's any way people can get in touch with you, they want to, you to train and PT or get involved in HYROX in some capacity, how can they do that?
I say the main channel that I use is Instagram. You can find me in Commando_Charlie, and that's the main channel that I use. So if any messages, anything you need to contact me, just reach me on there.
Through there. Awesome. You had a good time, mate?
Yeah, I've enjoyed it.
All right. It's been a pleasure, pal.
Thank
Thanks
you, mate.
so much
Thank
for
you for
coming
having
on.
me.
I've been Daniel Hodges. This has been Commando Charlie, and you've been listening to the Hodge-Cast. Take it easy. Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and we believe you can definitely take something away from today's guest. We couldn't attract guests such as this without a solid fan base. The best way we can grow this is through subscriptions. So, if you haven't already done so, can I please ask you hit that subscribe button and help us continue to put out content for you all to enjoy. Until next time.